It's a special John Lund Unleashed 49ers Camp Report edition. Shout out to Lund loyalists watching on YouTube, those watching on X, Instagram, Facebook, and JohnLundUnleashed.com and the Lund Lunatics, listening to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe and like John Lund Unleashed on YouTube and keep those alerts on so you don't miss anything. Now with the latest on the 49ers and the NFL, here's Johnny.
It is good to be back. Thank you for joining us. What is it, Tuesday? I'm all screwed up on days. Sorry I missed, because I'm going to be doing Sunday and Monday night, so I actually missed two shows. I do the Saturday morning and then Sunday and Monday. I should have done shows, but after Saturday, I was like, yeah. So was not in a good place, and I rarely miss shows, so wasn't dandy. But we are back. We are better than ever. Thank you for joining us for episode 217. A lot to get to, and we missed a lot with the 49ers, so I got some Robert Saleh for you and a bunch of stuff. And I'm not going to go back to the game because you already saw the game and everything, but I do have some things that are lingering. And then the 49ers, of course, are heading to Vegas, baby. And not everything will stay in Vegas because we'll give you reports from camp and then the game this weekend, and we'll keep you up to date on that as well, and hopefully some things turn out a lot better. Plus, we got the NFL Blitz going on. Max Crosby already says he's going to fight. I'm doing a piece on Tom Brady for my column this week, so I want to talk to you about that, and I'm going to need your help. There's a thing on stadiums that I want to talk to you about. As far as, this says episode 217. That's not right. Let me hold on just a second here. Looks like I got a different background. That ain't right. Episode 2. Oh, yeah, okay. That is right. That's it. That's right. All right. I didn't think it was, but it is. But it says 6 to watch. That's not right. 6 to watch. Injuries, not this again. The 6 to watch is wrong. Sorry, we screwed this thing all up. But it's pretty good. It's pretty close. Injuries, not this again. Green is scaring me a little bit. The wide receivers, they don't need an addition like something off the scrap heap. They need to make a trade at wide receiver. That's what we're getting to at this point. And I told you what was going to happen with Brandon AIYUK, and that's exactly what they said. All these people who said he was going to be back for the first game, I told you. He was going on the PUP list and at least missing the first 4. And Kyle said maybe 6, maybe 8. I think they'll reevaluate after 4, but we'll see what happens is what I'm hearing. But we'll get into that. And it seems like more and more Jauan Jennings is more holdout than calf. We'll get into that as well. And look, they have to pay the guy because of what the wide receiver core looks like. And you can't get off to this really slow start, especially with this defense. And we're seeing what happens with youth. Everybody can get excited in camp, but we'll get into that as well. Rookie update, how the rookies have done, and the defense having a blitz. The Raiders start Thursday, all that kind of stuff. So we got a ton of stuff to get to. Please make sure you're subscribed. John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Please keep those alerts on because we send out other stuff throughout the day, including Giants things and other various sports news and sports news in general and all sorts of shorts. So make sure you have those alerts on and then hit the like button before you get out of here tonight, because it does help the algorithm say this isn't such a half bad show. All right. Good evening. Well, good evening to Big Brick is here. B. Lauren is here. Hey, what's going on, man? It's good to see you. Joy. It is always a joy. Enrique. Anthony is here. 49ers Diehard is here. Christopher, it is great to see you. Pine, thank you for checking on me. I appreciate it. Thank you, Baba Booey. George is in Boston still, but he did have a great writing experience on the Cape and did all sorts of cool stuff. And now he's going straight into ASU football, in which he's going to travel with them. And they're 11th in the country. So, yeah, I appreciate you checking in. Thank you, Joe. I do feel better today. It just took me a couple of days and I'm good to go. So thanks, everybody, for joining today. Thanks to those watching on Instagram. We got people on Instagram already this evening. If you're watching on X at John Lund Radio, that's a great spot. Bay Area Sports Collective, LinkedIn, Facebook, any of those ways you can watch. We invite you to the community and say hello to everybody if you haven't been in here before, because everybody real cool in here. We have a great time. We keep sports in its proper perspective. It's important, but come on, man. It's supposed to be the toy box of life. So we treat it that way, but we do give you a lot of information, but we try to entertain and have a good time as well. So why don't you come in to the chat room over here on YouTube, John Lund Unleashed. All right, let's get to things. I tell you. Elvin, it is good to see you. I don't know if we've seen you, Elvin, but it is really cool. Watching from New Jersey. Very cool, man. Very cool that Elvin is watching us from New Jersey. I totally dig it. So very cool, man. All right, let's get to it. 6 to watch, scratch that. I don't know why that's still up there, but injuries, not this again. All right, so let's I told you I was not going to do this, but it's kind of become such a big deal that I have to. So let me get to the list here. All right, guys who didn't participate today. Nick Bosa, I get it. Renardo Green. Renardo Green's a problem because Jacob Cowan came back today. Very nice, very nice, very nice. They might need him for week 1 to potentially return punts, kicks, be a receiver. Maybe he could be the number 2 receiver. I think Ricky Pearsall, if he stays healthy, he would be the one right now. Jauan Jennings, I think they're going to get something done, but right now it's kind of doubtful. And we'll get into Jauan Jennings in just a second. But Renardo Green, the receiver core right now, because of the injuries and potentially hold in of Jauan Jennings, it's extremely thin. But what we did see from the preseason game, if you take one thing away as just the overall theme, is that the 49ers are very top heavy. All right. They have some of the best players in the league at their positions. George Kittle, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. You can go on out. Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you can go to like 6 or 8 positions and you can say, and they're paid as such, that they have some of the best players at their position in the league. I don't care about lists. I don't give a shit. You know, Brock Purdy to me is easily a top 10 quarterback. If you don't think so, then you don't understand the mental part of the game. I'm not going to fight with anybody over it. If someone wants to scream and yell on ESPN, he's 15, you do you. But I know he's a top 10 quarterback. There's a bunch of these guys, but here's the problem. They didn't start those guys. They didn't play a lot of those guys. And all of a sudden you start looking at the backups and they're just not NFL caliber backups. So guys are going to get hurt in the league. There's no question about it. If they stay healthy, and I don't mean NFL healthy, I mean really, 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 really healthy, they got a shot at something because the schedule's poor, and I think they can win 10 or 11 games. But if they have key injuries, specifically at wide receiver, which they're having right now, and the other where they have absolutely, positively no depth, and it's really hard to find these guys on the fly, is corner. And Renardo Green, it was said that at the same time he and Cowing, Renardo Green, the second-year corner out of Florida State, who's going to play opposite, hopefully start opposite Demo Lenore, was on Richard Sherman's podcast and said he was going to be the best corner in the league this year. I hope so. Even if he's not, if he's, top 10, that would be really nice. But then they just don't throw at you in the league. You know that. You've seen it. I mean, they used to just, when Richard Sherman was a Seahawk at his height, they just didn't throw at him. I mean, they said to hell with it. And you don't need very many weak spots on your team. And that's all they'll just pick on that. You got a weak corner, they'll pick on that. You got a corner, or you got a linebacker or a safety you can't cover, they'll just pick on that. They don't need, like, if you've got an elite corner, cool, he'll take away half the field. That's tremendous. But the Niners corners don't travel either. So all they'll do is they'll just take receivers away from Demo Lenore. I mean, it's easily done. And so the problem becomes if Renardo Green doesn't come back, they don't have another corner. And they don't even have kind of another corner. Now, they've got their 3, and I know that Upton Stout is going to be their 3rd, and I really like what Chase Lucas did, and that's nice, and he's a great special teamer, and et cetera, and they blitzed him, and they're going to do those things with Upton Stout as well. They're going to be fine. If Renardo Green is healthy, their top 3 corners are fine. But often throughout a season, it takes a lot more than that, and they just don't have it. DERAIL Lunar Jr., Jacob Robinson, pick your poison here. They just don't have one. And what the Niners are going to have to do, and it's really difficult to do, is they're going to have to get a corner and a wide receiver, and not just off the scrap heap. They're going to have to trade for one. They're going to have to use picks. They're going to have to use where they have excess, which really they don't really have excess anywhere. And they're going to have to pick somebody up. They may have to trade somebody that they liked in the 24 or the 25 draft. I mean, they may have to trade a young player to not get exposed at wide receiver or corner, especially at corner right now if Green doesn't come back. So Renardo Green is still hurt and not going to practice against the Raiders and probably not playing that game. Jauan Jennings we'll get to in a minute. Jordan Watkins is, I'm not going to call it devastating, but it's a gut punch, man. Kid had a 50-yard catch in the game. I told you, and he got the exact, if you watch the play, remember I've been telling you he's got that jab step to the cut, fake to the inside cut, fake to the outside cut to the inside and beats the guy because he's so fast. That's what he did to get the 50-yarder. Exactly what I told you he's been doing in practice. He's been great at it. Catches a 50-yarder. There's the deep threat. For the love of Danny Gray, there's a deep threat. And then he gets hurt. And it's a high ankle sprain, and he's out a month. So he's doubtful for the first game. Jauan's Jauan. Pearsall could get hurt. Cowing just came back. My God, it's brutal. It's even worse from a wide receiver standpoint than it had been. Today, also missing practice, Trey Brown, Richie Grant, Jordan James, Isaac Guerrero, Robert Beal Jr., Kevin Givens, Jordan Elliott, Sam Okawanu, Mikael Williams. My God, man. Ben Barch left midway through. They're not sure what the injury is. Connor Colby came in, the rookie from Iowa. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. But the two positions in particular are wide receiver and corner. And they're going to have to go out and get somebody because I saw today, and Matt Mayoko threw this out. I'm sorry, but that doesn't do anything for me. Malik Turner's been on this team. He's a special teamer. Frank Darby's been on this team for about 2 days. No, those guys aren't going to do anything. Those guys on that list, it's going to get to the point where I know the Niners don't want to do this, but to have a chance against Seattle in week 1, you're going to have to go get a receiver. You're going to have to go get a legitimate receiver. I'm not saying you're trading for Terry McLaurin, but you got to trade for somebody. Because as I told you, AIYUK was going to be put on PUP. I was told that a long time ago. This illusion of playing in the first couple of games, that was never a thing. So that's not happening. Demarcus Robinson is trying to appeal based on the fact that we don't have any receivers. Can you please just later in the season suspend me? That's not going to work. So he's not going to be playing at Seattle. Watkins is likely not going to be playing at Seattle. It's just, I don't have any belief in Cowing anyway. He got a 41-yard pass last year. How many 5'9", 175-pound guys are there in the league that's tearing it up? Not very many. Can't really think of any off the top of my head. And he hasn't practiced very much. It's just going to be really hard for him to be overly effective in week 1. So now you're starting to look at guys like Russell Gage, and now it's crazy. So, for example, again, our good friend Matt Mayoko, no AIYUK. Jennings is a contract, which they're going to have to give in. We'll get into that in a second. Pearsall, you get nervous. He's porcelain doll-ish. Suspension to Demarcus Robinson. Jacob Cowing. So you look right there. Russell Gage, Robbie Chosen. I mean, they've played in the league. Hodgins has played in the league. But, I mean, we're trending towards Pearsall, Gage, and Chosen. I mean, Tariq Owens runs a 4.8. He's not going to make this team. So that's what they've got. And I don't care who they work out. Like, I don't even let that kind of stuff. Don't tell me who they worked out. They've got to go out and get a receiver in this league. They've got to go out, and they've already done this, but they've got to scour and start looking at teams. Green Bay has an overload of wide receivers. And they got to get him in sooner rather than later. You're going to play in week 1. Now, everybody runs a version of the Shanahan offense, but the language is different. So, it's certain positions like a running back. There's not a whole lot of difference. This is just what we call it. But as far as what Kyle Shanahan expects out of wide receivers, it's different around here. So they need to get one in the next, a few days here, at least in the next week, see what's going on here. And then the other thing is, look, guys, I know you don't want to do it. I mean, there's a report out there early when this Jennings thing came about. I was told that they were going to do a couple of year deal. They were going to bump it up from 7.5 to maybe 12. And now we're hearing that he wants like the 20-ish. And I told you they weren't going to do that. They just got rid of Debo for this exact reason. They're not going to put those resources in the room. So if Jauan Jennings wants a $20+ million contract, this thing could be a minute. And so all of a sudden, Jauan Jennings, and I also told you this at the beginning. You want to pay Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Fred Warner. Yeah, I get it. Those are foundation pieces for your franchise. Jauan Jennings is not. There's a million receivers that come into the league every single year. It's not a position that you cannot find. Now, if you keep dropping like flies like the Niners do, then it becomes a difficult thing. But generally speaking, receivers are not hard to find. You just got to keep them healthy. When they're in San Francisco, you just got to keep them healthy, but you can find them. You just got to keep them healthy. Now, where the Niners are and where this gets really interesting is if I'm Jauan Jennings, and I want to get paid, I'm sorry, people could call him selfish. I get it. I get what he's doing, but also get that the 49ers, if they give him a deal now, what's to stop the next guy and the next guy and the next guy and the next guy? John Lynch can say to the agent of some average to above average player when they come to him for an extension, even though they just signed a contract last year, which Jauan Jennings did, they're look, man, you're not Bosa. You're not Purdy. You're not Kittle. You're not Warner. Those are foundational pieces, and that agent's going to have to say, I get it. But if you pay Jauan Jennings, there's I'm not going to say there's a lot of Jauan Jennings because he adds a lot as a Niner and all the different things he does, and they love him. But he is kind of an above average player that is replaceable. I like him a lot. Don't get me wrong. But he's not critical. He's a really nice player. But when you have AIYUK and you have Pearsall, and then you find a third receiver, I mean, he's probably, when AIYUK gets back, and I think Pearsall is looking really good, he's probably a third receiver on this team. You cannot let a third receiver, even though he's by proxy now the number one receiver because of the injuries, but you can't let a third receiver hold you hostage, because then that sets a precedence on your team in which you've got to pay just about everybody. Safety has a good season. He wants to get paid. Corner has, I just signed a contract, but God, you did it with Jennings. Why can't you do it with me? So there's a difference between paying all the guys that they paid in the offseason and paying Bosa when they did and all that kind of stuff and extending all these guys. And then Jauan Jennings, who got paid a year ago, comes back to you because of the circumstances and says, I want to get paid. So that's the Niners side of things. I get why they're not doing it. Now, having said that, you're in a position right now where I get it. You want to be, I just explained the situation. But you have Pearsall right now, Gage, Hodgins starting, maybe Cowing. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how much he's going to participate. He's coming back slowly. I don't know how much he's going to be in the Raiders practices, but now, as of this week, we'll be 3 weeks away from the first game in Seattle. So look, this is a tough one for the 49ers. They have navigated a lot of these waters and got these guys in and done all these deals. But what they've done is they've done it. And like I said, the preseason showed how top heavy these guys are. And we'll see more against the Raiders. They'll play guys. But this is a major problem because to me, it is clearly less about the calf now, and it's more about the contract. It's clear that it's more about the contract. Maybe the calf hurts. Maybe the calf is sore. But could he go out and practice and play? I think so. But what's happening here is clearly it's a hold-in, which that's why I did this right now. Here we go again. Didn't we do this in 2024? Lots of injuries, a hold-in wide receiver. Like, here we go again. Then we've got a hold-in wide receiver, and we have a bunch of injuries already. And I thought, and I said this at the beginning of training camp, I go, if they have average NFL health, it's different than Major League Baseball health. It's different than NBA health. It's different than any other sport. You're going to have injuries. But they've had the injuries and now the hold-in, and now, because I'm going to call it a hold-in now. I'm calling it a hold-in. So the problem becomes with Jauan Jennings now is they're over a barrel. One side of them says, we can't pay this guy because now everybody's going to come to us that's has a decent year and want a new contract. We can't set that precedence. We'll pay our stars, but man, this guy now? But now they have so many injuries. Kyle Shanahan's walking in there going, come on, John. What are we going to do? It's going to be Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing and Russell Gage? Like, that's what we're giving our new quarterback who we gave all that money to? Really? Against Seattle, I'm telling you, they got a good defense. I know you don't like the Seahawks. They have a good defense. Mike McDonald's building a good defense there. I don't know how much they're going to score. I don't know about Darnold, Ken Walker, their offensive line, all that kind of stuff. But week one in Seattle, loud as hell and a pretty good defense. And how are the Niners going to win games early? Because we're going to play Robert Saleh in a second. They're going to have to outscore opponents while these young players who we saw make mistakes. And Robert Saleh is telling you every single day, he's warning you in the nicest way possible that it's going to hurt at the beginning. They're going to make mistakes. Fred Warner has said it. Every veteran defensive player or coach has come up there and said, rookie's going to rookie. Rookie's going to rookie. And we're starting 6 to 8 of them in that opener. Mikael Williams, CJ West, Collins, maybe Valdez is going to be in the rotation on the D-line. Nick Martin's got a ways to go. You saw that. I was telling you that in camp. He's got a ways to go. Upton Stout, he's good, but rookie's going to rookie. Marcus Siegel, he might be a starter by default. The kid from Kansas State, really good near the line of scrimmage, really fast, but really aggressive, ball fakes to the back. And Seattle's got a really nice tight end that they took in the second round out of Miami in Arroyo, and they're using him a ton. And it's going to take a minute for the defense. So they've got to get Jauan Jennings back. And so while I don't advocate them doing this, this is a special circumstance. And I look at situations where it's not always black and white. There's some gray. if somebody comes to me and says, but you gave Jauan Jennings money too. Look, he had us over a barrel. That's how I can explain that. Yeah, we gave superstars money because that's what we have to do. But when Jauan Jennings got his money, Mr. Agent, who wants, to renegotiate a deal, when we did it with Jauan Jennings, AIYUK was out and Cowing was coming off an injury. We didn't have any receivers. And we didn't want to pay the guy, but we had to pay the guy. So we're not doing that. We're not setting a precedence of paying just above average players who we probably could live without at some point, but we had no choice. Now, if he's asking for $20 million over, if he's asking like a 3 and 60, it's not getting done, period. And they might as well trade the guy. It's a miracle. His cap is fine. Trade him to somebody then and try to get somebody back. Try to get a receiver back. Like your receiver, our receiver, here you go. And you're not going to get Terry McLaurin for Jauan Jennings or anything like that. I'm not suggesting that. But if somebody's got, trade him to New England. Isn't there a guy there that I'm just saying it might not be value, but you need a wide receiver on this team who's a veteran because Pearsall hasn't played enough. Cowing hasn't played enough. Those might be two guys that are going to be your top two receivers. And it helps that McCaffrey's here. It helps that Kittle's here, all that kind of stuff. But you got to have some wideouts. And the Watkins thing hurts because he looked good. Watkins looked really good. And the same things we're seeing in camp, we saw in that game. So, yeah, that was not great. So that's the latest as far as the wide receivers. They are definitely over a barrel as far as Jennings is concerned. And I think that we could have a interesting showdown here because I don't know what they're going to do. They don't want to set the precedence, but they're over such a barrel right now with all the injuries. I just don't know what they can do. So, yeah, that injury going on. Let me see if I've got any other notes here that were from an injury standpoint before we can move off that shit. God, just constant about the injury. So, anyway, not this again. I missed an N on there, too. I'm having a brilliant day on the chalkboard there. My chalk is all screwed up. Wide receivers need a trade. Jennings, I think it's more about the contract. You can tell me that in the text. Hit me up on the chat line there. Give me your thoughts on that. We'll do rookie update in just a second, but give me your thoughts on what would you do? I mean, you know what? I've never advocated McLaurin, and I think that thing's going to get done. But you may get to the point. I know they don't want to do another big contract, but you might have to get to the point where you're like, all right, we got to get somebody out here. Because at some point, it's also not going to be fair to Brock Purdy. Like, what are we doing here? So anyway, that's what's going on as far as the receivers. The reason why I wanted to do, because I'm going to play some Robert Saleh here for you in just a second. But the reason why I wanted to do rookie update, I'll do that in just a second. Let me see what we got here. I think JJ would fire his agent and go out and earn his bread. I mean, I think that's what he should do. But I think what he's doing is, and look, some people could look at it as selfish, and I totally get it. But how many times do you have leverage like this? And you're letting down your team and you're letting down your teammates, but your teammates understand how this works. It's very short. You can get an injury. You can have a major injury like Brandon AIYUK. And then what? You think the 49ers are going to, let's say he got hurt in camp, blew out his knee. Think the Niners are going to give Jauan Jennings any money? No. This is the last year of his deal. $7.5 million. Blows his knee out. I don't know. What's he going to make? So I understand why he's doing it. Major leverage. Bunch of injuries at wide receiver. Sorry. This is what you got to do. So I understand it from Jauan Jennings' standpoint. It's just, and I understand it from the Niners' standpoint, but they're so over a barrel now with the Watkins injury. I mean, if you think about it, Pearsall, Watkins, get Jennings back, okay. But now, you get Watkins out for a month. He's not going to probably be ready for that opener in Seattle. I don't know what Cowing's going to do. I mean, you are. I look at the waiver wire and the guys that they bring in. I'm like, these guys can't play. These guys aren't any good. You're gonna have to make a trade here, and you don't want to, and you don't want to give up picks next year. And I get it. You don't want to give up players or anything like that, but you may have to do something that you just don't want to do, which is you might have to try a young player that's got some upside. I'm not suggesting a Nick Martin or something, but Nick Martin's a ways away. I like him, but D. Winters and Fred Warner are going to play most of the snaps at linebacker. You can find linebackers. I like the kid, but he was a 3rd-round pick, and he's going to take a minute. Could he get you a receiver? Because you sure as hell need one. So you're either going to pay Jauan Jennings, or you're going to go out and get some sort of a legitimate receiver. And Amari Cooper says he's retiring. Keenan Allen signed with the Chargers. the thing is, everyone hits me with like a Gabe Davis or somebody like that. Here would be my question back to you. How come someone hasn't signed Gabe Davis? Like, what's going on? He had a bunch of injuries. It's been a few years since he was any good. I mean, you're going to have to make some calls to somebody and say, look, you're going to have to overpay for somebody, whatever, but nobody's got a worse situation as far as the receivers are than what the 49ers do right now. And they may just be forced to have to give money to Jauan Jennings. And we can be pissed at him as fans going, dude, you're so selfish. I can't believe you're doing this. The team needs you. Well, this is his leverage year. He's going to make $7.5 million. And for these guys, they can't live off that the rest of the year or rest of their life. So he's got one chance. Eminem, he's got one chance. That's it. And he's like, try to get $20 million a year. These guys need me. So anyway, give me your thoughts. All right, I got a lot of Robert Saleh for you, and I want to hit you with a little of this. So the rookie update is this, and this is the reason I bring up the rookie update, and this is more so from the first game. So Mikael Williams obviously didn't play. Alfred Collins, I don't know if you heard Robert Saleh talk about him today. I put so much Collins and West and all that kind of stuff that I didn't cut up the Robert Saleh talking about those guys, but there's two things. CJ West, I didn't think – I went back and watched the tape, and CJ West didn't play poorly, and a lot of people think that he did. I mean, he penetrated. He was a little bit out of control, and that's what's going to happen with young players. He got to a certain point, and the guard would just kind of push him over. Like, if you're going to be aggressive, we're going to use your aggressiveness against you. So he got a little bit of a lesson in that game, but he still penetrated, and I think he's going to be fine. Watched Alfred Collins a lot when I rewatched it, and still standing up, but better. He got better leverage. He pushed the pocket a little bit. What people expect out of Collins as a second-round pick is not going to be what he is. He is a massive human being, and his job is to keep guards and interior offensive linemen off the linebackers. I don't care if he gets no sacks. Stop the run. Okay, that's what he's going to be. So if you've got this wild illusion that Collins is going to get 5 or 6 sacks, he's not going to. He might run into 1 or 2, but he's got to be a massive human being that just can't be moved. That's his job. And he looked better. And Robert Saleh, every single day he's asked about him, is like, oh, he didn't have, this, and he didn't have OTAs. But I don't care. I do not care at this point. Like, stop saying that. Excuses, explanations. At this point, it's an excuse. He's been on the field for the first few weeks of camp, and if he doesn't play well, then we as fans, as the 43rd pick in the draft overall, I don't care, because he missed OTAs, should not wash out his rookie season. So I'm sick of hearing about Alfred Collins missing OTAs because of an injury. Sorry, got to play better. They took you 43rd overall. And to me, so far, he looks like a project. In fact, Sebastian Valdez is better. And I'm not saying that that's long-term, but they picked up a free agent, and the Niners do this all the time. First, second round, you're like, late rounds, free agents, CJ West has been better than Collins. Sebastian Valdez has been better than Collins. So as far as rookies go in the second round, that's that. Obviously, Stout is going to start. I know what Lucas did. Stout's going to start. Nick Martin is the one that I told you about. And look, let's just use some logic, and this is what I'm trying to warn you about when the season starts. What happened to Nick Martin last year? Got hurt. Didn't play. Just played a few games for Oklahoma State. So you have to go back to his junior year to when Nick Martin actually played a lot of football. And he comes in here, hurts his thumb, kind of a slow process, and now he's kind of just getting up to speed. And he went to the podium about, 10 days ago and said, look, it's still spinning pretty fast for me. And everyone still was like, preseason game, can't wait to see Nick Martin. I told you, I've watched him in practice, and he's what D. Winters was a year ago. D. Winters would get there. He could diagnose. He could get there. And when he got there, he was so excited. He couldn't make a play. He didn't break down. He didn't slow down. It was just too fast for him. It was moving too fast. He was too excited. This year, D. Winters is like this mature guy that's like, I get it. I've been here. It's fine. I got this. And he's going to be good. So he and Fred Warner are going to play 90% of the linebacker snaps, and then, maybe 80% of the linebacker snaps. And then when they need a strong side guy, they'll right now put in Clifford, and maybe Martin will get that shot, but he's not really a strong side guy. He's not really built like that. 220 pounds. So he may have a redshirt year, but you could see it coming because he hardly played last year. And then, again, he had a thumb injury, and it's kind of just been slow. Mikael Williams, the same thing. Didn't play a lot. His edge Skills aren't that great. He had an ankle injury. He looks better coming from the inside. That might take a minute. Just saying. CJ West has looked great. Jordan Watkins has looked great. Jordan James, that's unfortunate for the injury. Marcus Siegel, and I didn't cut this up either. I'm going to play some Robert Saleh for you in a second. He looked really good in the game. Moving forward. Like I tell you that about linebackers all the time. They can come into this game and they can move forward. Diagnose. He's got 4.36 speed, this kid. He can hit like a truck. Like, I like Siegel. He's a nice player. But what safety for the 49ers can play in the deep zone, can go sideline to sideline? They don't possess that player. And that's where I get nervous again. As I told you, wide receiver, I'm nervous. Depth at corner, I'm nervous. And now I'm starting to look at safety. Jason Pinnock can come up and play in the box. Siegel can obviously play in the box. Richie Grant does nothing for me. He's been in the league for a number of years, and he's more of a special teams guy. And then Jair Brown, by default, is going to have to play, and he, got 4.65 speed. He's not really sideline to sideline quick guy. So teams are going to challenge the 49ers in the deep parts of the field. Now, Seattle, for example, they don't have DK Metcalf anymore. They don't have Tyler Lockett anymore. Smith and Jigma's not really a deep threat. Cooper Kupp at this point in his career is not a deep threat. They got this kid named Torrey Horton. And if you remember the name, when Colorado and Colorado State played Deion's first year, it was like the second or third game of the season. And Horton, it was on national TV, and Horton just tore up Colorado. I don't know. He Colorado State wide receiver, might have 11, 12 catches, something like that. They just couldn't stop the kid. And he's a really nice player. And at the combine, with he said he was only 80%, he ran in the 4.4s. So he could probably run in the 4.3s, and he's at an amazing camp, and they're kind of trying to comp him to what Puka Nacua did a couple of years ago when he was the Rams. And so watch 15 in the first game against Seattle, because my buddy in Seattle, Ian Furness, who I go on his show every week in Seattle, was saying that, hey, man, watch this kid. And so he could be their deep threat. So, look, teams are going to challenge the 49ers. They're not stupid. It's not only the corners, but it's the safeties. And they've got safeties that'll come up and hit you. Siegel will do that. Pinnock will do that. Brown will do that. But they don't really have a deep safety on this roster. And that's going to be a problem. So that's another thing that's making me a little bit nervous. Other rookies, like I said, Siegel. Colby is getting a lot of love. Bergen, and we'll see. He's probably going to be a practice squad player. And then Valdez, which I'm going to play something from Robert Saleh right now in terms of some of the defensive guys. So that's what's going on as far as camp and rookies are concerned. Let me play some stuff for you. I've been yapping long enough. So this first thing I'm going to play for you, this is Brian Baldinger, and I'm sure you've seen his breakdowns before. But this is from obviously the preseason game, and Baldy's talking about the blitzes that Saleh is showing. Because remember, when Saleh was here before, his last couple of years, they didn't blitz a lot. Well, they didn't need to, because Buckner was inside, Armstead was inside, Bosa's on the edge, Ford was on the edge in 2019. So, I mean, they had a great defensive line. So you can get there with 4. But now, because of these young guys, you have to blitz a little bit. You may have to do some more stunts. So watch Baldy here in this breakdown from Saleh's blitzes. And then I'm going to have Saleh today talk about if he's going to blitz more. So here's Brian Baldinger for you.
His defense in San Francisco. They weren't going to just sit back and play vanilla defense. Chase Lucas comes free right here off the edge. All right, Bo Nix in the end zone. Throws that ball away. He's between the tackle box. It leads to a safety. Defense scores some points. But you saw it throughout the game. Edge pressure right here. They weren't, now, you better cover the back here, RJ Harvey. He might go a long way. But they were going to be aggressive. They were going to mug the line of scrimmage. They might back out. They might come. All right? They're going to give you a lot of different looks. When you watch this right here, the same play, like a twister inside, right? CJ West right here. Kalia Davis comes free. Like, you got to sack the quarterback right here. I know it's Bo Nix, but you can't let him slide away. All right, but still it leads to an incompletion. They were not going to just sit back and play coverage. All right, here's a long limbo right here. All right, Tatum Bethune coming. All right, they were going to get to the quarterback. And I think that's something you're going to see throughout the year. They are not going to just rush for, play various coverages behind it.
All right, so what Baldy, you know what he's saying there, is they may have to blitz because they may not have the forward. I'm excited at some point during the season when Mikael Williams gets healthy and Huff is outside of him and Bosa's on the other side and CJ West learns to consistently use his great tools. I think that could be a really good turbo or pass rushing package for the 49ers, but I don't know if it's going to be right away. So what Saleh's trying to do, because the more you practice something, the better you get at it. And he's not a big safety guy, or excuse me, a big blitz guy, but because they don't exactly have the 2019 defensive line, because he's told you again and again and again, this defense is a work in progress with all the youth, they're going to have to send blitzes. They're going to have to send, like, for example, Upton Stout with a slot blitz, he's going to be coming. Fred Warner's probably going to blitz more than ever. The stunts that you saw, Kalia Davis had an opportunity. And by the way, Kalia Davis looks like he might be something. That's good news with all these young guys up front. Kalia Davis, if the season started today, he probably would be a starter on that defensive line. So they're starting to get some depth, but it's just going to take a minute. But because they don't, there's both sides, I get it, but they've got to show. Every team is going to play the Niners the same way. Look, we're doubling Bosa and a chip until somebody else shows us something, which means some of these young guys have got to come through before Bosa gets a break as far as the doubles, the chips, and all that. So with Baldy's breakdown in mind, here's Robert Saleh today asked about blitzing as much as he did in the preseason opener.
I think in 2019 we could just rush 4. Probably one of the best D-lines in the history of football, but we're 2020, we need to go a little bit more. So you just work off your personnel and what you have, and some of those pressures are more run stunt. You might run stunt a few, but it's calling what's necessary for that particular game. But I think I speak for every coordinator in football that the preference is to rush 4 if you can.
All right, so there you go. I'm going to remind you of this. You already know this. But the problem that comes with blitzing is you expose more players. So you got to be one-on-one. Now, here's the good news. D. Winters, Fred Warner in the middle of the field, they can patrol. D. Winters is going to have a good year. I really believe that. If they are healthy in the secondary, which right now they're not because Renardo Green is not back, and it was a bummer that Upton Stout didn't play, but that's not going to be a long-term thing. And then he just said on Richard Sherman's podcast, Diamond or Lenore, that he's going to be the best corner in the league, right? If those 3 are playing and playing consistently, then they're okay. And then those 2 linebackers I just mentioned, I'm nervous about the safeties. There's no doubt about it. But what that constantly does is you've got to win one-on-one battles. So you're coming, somebody's coming, so you got an extra guy, a 5th guy's coming. That means everybody else has got to be tight. And if you get beat, and this is where I get nervous about the safeties, you're going to give up a big play. But Robert Saleh is thinking to himself, okay, especially if doesn't have Renardo Green, they may have to blitz just because you can't let the quarterback sit there all day long against Darrell Luter or against Jacob Robinson or against some of these younger corners that just haven't proven anything. Even Upton Stout, like I said, that first game against Seattle, it's not going to be so much against the Raiders. It's not going to be in the last preseason game, Denver, whatever. Or excuse me, not Denver, Chargers. It's not going to be anything like that. It's going to Seattle when they're game planning. There is no game planning in the preseason. They're not going to look at Upton Stout and say, okay, let's game plan against the 5'8" nickel. We'll see. Like I said, it's going through and checking these boxes from shorts, pads, preseason, then regular season. And then I don't believe it. But they're gonna have to blitz a little bit, which means they're gonna have to put these guys on islands, which means big plays could happen early in the season because Robert Saleh is just testing it out. Like, how can our guys, and it's also putting pressure on these guys early to say, well, let's see. A guy who got a bunch of grief in this game was Nick Martin. And the only reason I wanted to play this for you is this is exactly who D. Winters was a year ago. Got to the play, diagnosed really fast, very athletic, didn't break down. Kind of just panicked when he got to the point of attack to tackle the runner. And so this sounds very familiar. Here's Robert Saleh explaining what he saw from Nick Martin, the 3rd round pick, the linebacker out of Oklahoma State in preseason game 1.
Nick, no, it's okay. Nick's doing a good job. Obviously, he's a big time run and hit linebacker, and so a couple of those, he just has to learn how to control himself at the tackle point, come together. It's get his feet underneath him and just get his body on the ball carrier until the speed of the game catches up to him, if that makes sense. But he's young. you know, it was his first real live action in over a year and a half, so we're not concerned with some of those missed tackles. I think we'll get those cleaned up.
I am, because D Winters early in the season, you couldn't play him because he just was too out of control. And I think Nick Martin's going to take a minute. Not all these draft picks are going to come through. If I had to guess right now, which is why I went through the draft picks, this time that Mikael Williams is missing is critical. He could have played in the preseason game. I don't know that he's going to play in the joint practices against the Raiders. I would think not, because the 49ers are very careful when it comes to injuries. They need him for the game at Seattle. They don't need him for the Raiders game. So I don't know that he's going to do any practicing. I haven't heard that he is, nor play in the game. I doubt he will. So those are massive reps for Mikael Williams, who, like I keep saying this like a broken record, had the fewest amount of snaps of any edge rusher coming out, and he's 20 years old. He needs reps. And so it's going to take him a minute. So he's going to start slow. Alfred Collins is starting slow. Upton Stout has been absolutely great. Nick Martin, third-round pick, starting slow. But kind of now you get into the wheelhouse of the 49ers, right? Guys like Valdez, who I'm going to play for you in a second. Watkins, I think if he can get past this high ankle sprain, I think he's going to contribute this year, which, like I said, that's just a real bummer. But you start, Connor Colby is starting to get some good grades, the guard. And if Ben Barch doesn't get back, look, he's an Iowa guy. He's a veteran. He knows how it's going to be done. So he could be a guy. I mean, they've got some picks that I think are really going to be good. And I'm not trying to downgrade anybody like Collins or Mikael Williams or Nick Martin, but those guys were first, second, and third round picks, and they might just take a second. And in Collins and Martin's case, it's because they were kind of injured, and Martin was injured last year, and then he hurt his thumb early here. Then Collins wasn't in the OTAs, and so he's catching up. But I watched a lot of him during the game, and he's still getting forklifted a little bit, just even though he's that big. And so he's just got to be a rock in the middle. So it might take a minute for some of these young guys, and we knew it would. So I'm not down on Nick Martin, but I will say with the lack of wide receivers, and they're not going to do this. I'm just suggesting you've got to give something to get something. So do you want to give up a pick in next year's draft? They might have to. The way D Winters is looking, I'm not saying that Nick Martin isn't a solid player, but you can find run and hit linebackers. You can find them. I mean, it's not a premium position, and he's a third round pick, and he's probably going to take a little bit of time. Could you do player for player and get a wide receiver for Nick Martin? Maybe. I'm just suggesting, and you're not going to give up on a third round pick. I understand that. And I'm not saying at all that he's going to be a bust or anything like that. It's just, you've got really important positions at wide receiver and at corner where you have little to no depth, and especially wide receiver right now. Because like I said, I already went through Jauan Jennings' situation. If you didn't hear it, go back to the beginning of the show. That doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. And like I said, I think it's more holdout than injury at this particular point. So we'll see. So there's that. Before I get more into the defense, and I've got the Valdez stuff for you, let me just make sure that questions, comments, thoughts, hit me up in the chat line. Again, John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. I am in the chat room right now, so if you want to hit me up right there. By the way, if you want to 100% get your questions, comments, or thoughts on the show, hit me up with a super. We can do that as well, and we appreciate you always supporting the show. Let's see here. Oh, good to see Tommy in here. Did I say hi to Big Brick, Daryl? Good to see Tribe in here. Very cool to see you, man. Very nice. Daryl, good to see you. Jeff, we haven't seen Jeff in a while. Yeah, I'm trying to get people to watch the show. I mean, they're pathetic. I mean, they're just, hi, Jeff. They're pathetic, and they're not fun to watch. Like, a team can lose and be fun and lose 10-8. I can live with that. I can't live with this. And I love Bob Melvin, but that giving him an extension is one of the most confusing things I've ever seen. Get to the playoffs, and we'll talk about your extension. I don't know why you had to do it in the middle of the season, but whatever. Hi, Carlos. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, it's ugly, and it's football season, and I'm not going to sit here and dwell on terrible. I did that a lot. I'm like, it's not getting me anywhere, and nobody watched. All right, let me give you a little Valdez, because I like this kid. I don't know. I mean, it's preseason, and always we get these preseason guys. I was trying to think of the guy's name, and I remembered it. Remember Marcus Rush? I'll give you a minute. Marcus Rush, he wore 44 for the 49ers, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago. And he led the NFL in preseason sacks. He had like 4.5. 4.5, something like that, maybe 5, something like that. I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago. And we all loved him. I know Krug was a huge fan of him. He was a linebacker. He looked great in the preseason. And they tried to get him through waivers, and Jacksonville picked him up, and everyone's like, oh, no, Marcus Rush. He didn't do anything in the league. Just did nothing. So you don't know. I mean, there's lots of preseason stars who turn it into nothing. Remember Samuel Womack had the 2 interceptions against the Packers, was playing in the slot, and everyone's like, oh, man, he's the next great one. Uh-huh. Where is he? I think he's in Indianapolis. Not really doing anything. So you never know in the preseason, but Sebastian Valdez, you just watch him in camp, because I told you I'm obsessed with watching the D-line. So I'm watching 95 Collins and 99 West, and I'm watching Bosa, obviously, and I'm watching Alfred. I'm watching Mikael Williams when he's out there, and I'm just down by the defensive line because it's so important. And every single day, especially early in camp, you're seeing this 55, right? And he's built like a fire hydrant. I mean, he's built lower than CJ West, and dudes are not digging going against him. I mean, he's pushing guys back. And then it was, I'm trying to think who was might have been Pooney or one of the offensive linemen, or Colt McKivitz or something. Maybe Colt McKivitz said it last week. They brought up Hulk. They brought up the name Hulk. And then they're just like, this dude ain't fun, because seriously, I don't know, maybe 6 foot, and he just gets underneath you naturally, and he's strong as hell. So can he play that way in the regular season? I don't know. But what we may see is, because this is what they do in the preseason, so guys are actually going to play against the Raiders. I don't know how much, because Kyle has already got all these injuries. So you're not going to see as much as you normally would. I mean, they got to get the starters some reps. But if they have any more injuries, it's like they may have to cancel the game at Seattle. Like when you were in Little League and like 10 guys would show up for the game, and they're like, sorry, you can't play with 2 outfielders. You got to forfeit. I mean, the Niners are pacing that way. I'm only half kidding, but seriously. So I bet they're a little nervous in the building, and they're probably, like joint practices. They're probably dreading joint practices, because you can get hurt in joint practices because everybody's going for it. Everybody's going balls out, and they're like, we got to do joint practices. We're going to get more guys hurt. So you're not going to see a ton of guys for a lot. Well, you'll see guys, but I just don't think for a very long time, because Kyle Shanahan can't afford any more injuries. But I do think that what you might start seeing, because this is what happens in the preseason, and since there's only 3 games and you don't play anybody in the 3rd game, so this is really the dress rehearsal, is that Valdez may get some reps with first teamers just to say, okay, let's give you a step up. And this is what I mean by checking boxes, right? OTAs, early in camp in shorts, put on the pads, good first preseason game. All right, you're a hot shot preseason star. I want to put you with the first teamers. Let's see what you do. Now, the Raiders don't have a great offensive line. I felt bad for Ashton Jeanty at Seattle last Thursday when he had 3 carries for -1 yards, and a bunch of people were bitching and moaning, going, he's not very good. And Trevion Henderson returns that kick for a touchdown. It was like, all the draft guys were like, I had Trevion Henderson #1. It's like, did you see the offensive line of the Raiders? My God, it's horrible. And Seattle wasn't even playing starters, and they were crushing those guys. So if the 49ers D-line can't have a day against the Raiders, then we have problems. So I'd like to see Valdez go against what they think is their first teamers. And Colton Miller, their left tackle, is fine. Howard Johnson, a kid who's in his 2nd year out of Oregon, he's decent. Outside of that, they got to take advantage of this Raiders offensive line. Not great. And it was not good in Seattle. So I'm excited to see what Mr. Valdez brings. Here's Robert Saleh today talking about him.
Shot on some of these undrafted free agents, and because you see something, whether it's foot speed, length, whatever it might be. And for him, he's just overall a good football player in college. Give him a chance and see if he can translate. And like I said, he's doing a good job. And for him, it's cliche, but it is finding ways to get better. And when he gets opportunities against the first group O-line or even a second group O-line, once he gets up to that, as he keeps proving that he's better than what he's going against, he'll get chances to go against better competition. And then from there, if he continues, then he'll continue his rise. But we got, 3 more weeks of training camp, 2 more games. So he still has a lot of time to prove that he can make it.
And they're very careful. This is an interesting time during training camp, because people are starting to get excited. They're seeing him against backups, and they're going, could this guy be something? And then it's not Robert Saleh on purpose trying to, put cold water on this whole thing. But that's what I mean about continuing to challenge him. All right, we'll see what he does against first teamers. And as I said, the Raiders' offensive line is not very good, but let's see what this kid can do. Because like I said, just because Alfred Collins gets taken in the second round and Sebastian Valdez is a free agent doesn't mean that the kid can't be better than Collins. I like Collins, and I think he's going to be doing something here. But Valdez is doing it now. And with his, like I said, low center of gravity, very strong guy, all your job is right now, the interior, the defensive line, because, Gibbons, the penetrator, he's out. Most of the guys that they have left, they're big rocks in the middle that they don't want to have moved. And they want to keep those interior linemen off the next level of guys. So these guys can do that. And Valdez, even though he's not as big as a Collins, even as big as a West, he can do that. He's a strong dude. So continue to be a guy that we're going to watch against the Raiders and in the joint practices against the Raiders, because I think that's something that everybody's going to be watching for. So there's the latest on Sebastian Valdez, which is a guy to watch. Injuries I already gave you. Let me just make sure in my notes here I didn't have anything else that I wanted to hit you with from practice today. Just got here again. Renardo Green out. Jennings out. Watkins out. Stout out. Trey Brown out. Richie Grant out. James out. Jordan James, the running back. Garendo's still out. Beal out. Givens, Elliott, Okawanu, we knew that, and Mikael Williams. That's just a ton. Jacob Cowing did return to practice. And then this is more bad news. Ben Barch departed practice. It's just like, what? And like I said, I think Jauan Jennings is more of a hold in than a calf. I think it's a combination of both, but I think it's more of a hold in at this point. And I said this right when this was actually, we had a show before the first day of 49ers camp. And everyone was all excited. And we ran out there and we shot, in our cameras or our phones and everything. And there's Jauan Jennings. There's 15. He's running around. Yay. And so everybody reported back. And then all of a sudden the mysterious, calf injury that reappeared from OTAs. And now I'm just not so sure and I hate hold-ins. Like if this is a hold-in, what I would do if I was the 49ers, just like you had to have learned your lesson from AIYUK last year, right? Like we don't want the distraction around, because everybody's looking for him. Oh, there he is. He just poked his head into the weight room. He's around. Oh, there he is on the far field. I told you we were on a far field. And when we moved to the far field, he comes to the close field. And when guys are injured, they don't have to talk to the media. So we have no access to Jauan Jennings. None. And so to me, like I said, I think it's a hold in at this point. And what I would tell a hold in guy, I don't know the rules as far as the players union is concerned, but if a hold in guy, I just go home. Go home. I don't want you sitting around unless you're going to participate, because we did this last year with Brandon AIYUK and we don't want the same thing. I don't want hold-ins. And then the thing is that a hold-in, I don't fine you. So I want you to be fined. Like that $7.5 million, I want that to go down every time you don't play. Because to me, as far as negotiations are concerned, Jauan Jennings isn't losing anything right now. And we can sit here and say he's selfish as fans, but the players on the team don't look at it like that. You got to get yours when you can, because this is a short career. So you got to get yours. So the players aren't pissed at him. But if I'm an organization and I'm trying to play hardball back, he's saying, look, I don't care. This may sound harsh, but this is really what his agent and he are saying to the 49ers. I don't care how desperate you are at the position. I know that you have all these injuries. I know AIYUK's not going to be back at least until week 6, it looks. I know that Cowing just came back. I know that Watkins just got hurt. That just strengthens my case, man. You got to pay me. It's a selfish move. I understand it. The players understand it. But what can you do as an organization? You can say, go home. Because if you're not going to participate in the physical side of this is training camp. You sitting in meetings doesn't do me any good. You know the offense. We haven't changed it that much. You've been around here. You were here at OTAs. You've been here for the first couple of weeks of camp. You know the offense. Go home. And then we can start finding you. And then we'll see. Because then that's our way of saying, all right, because right now nothing's hurting him. He's not working out. He's not getting fined. He's not, I'm just here so I don't get fined. He's not getting fined. So he can just sit and sit and sit. Now, you start getting to the beginning of the year, and that's what he'll probably do. He'll probably sit to the beginning of the year, which again, you would say to yourself, well, that doesn't hurt. Well, he's not going to have the timing down. He's not going to have the timing with Brock down at the first game. Let's say that Jauan Jennings takes this thing all the way out until the week of the Seahawks game and finally says, fine, I'll just play. Well, he's not going to be as sharp. So I know they've got to do something. You got to be able to push back in this league. You've got to be able to have some leverage. And right now, what's the 49ers leverage? What did their receiver core sucks? It does. But the only thing they can do is potentially go out and get a trade. All these guys that are working out, I don't care. None of those guys are any good. We got some supers. Very nice. Time to read the supers, everybody. Thank you for donating the show. This is my good friend Pine Needle. They can't kick him out, but it also pisses off the locker room of the players. They just can't do that. No, I get it. But if I'm the organization, like I said, you're talking about precedence here. And I hate to repeat myself, but everybody understands it. You do, I do, the players do, the league does. You pay Purdy, you pay Kittle, you pay Warner, you pay Bosa. You pay the core players of your team. Jauan Jennings, as much as everybody likes him, and I do, he's not an irreplaceable piece of this team. And that's where the 49ers are trying to draw a line. But this is where Jauan Jennings is saying, I got you over a barrel, man. It's a very short career. I could get hurt at any time. And I'm not playing. I'm not playing for 7.5. I'm the pseudo number one receiver. I'm going to take advantage of all of this. Not doing it. And the Niners are like I said, they probably have to pay the guy because they're in such a bad position. Because everybody's looking at the front office going, yeah, we get it, man. But you got to pay the guy. And the second part of it is that now, okay, oh, did you see? Agents are like, ha, 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 they just paid him. So now some of these other positions, you have a safety that has a good year this year. I want to renegotiate. Somebody just signed a new, I want to renegotiate. You open up that can of worms. But if I'm the Niners, look, this doesn't set a precedence. We were desperate. But here's what we don't know. Because at the beginning, like I said, I'll restate this. Right when this all happened, I was told that it was going to be a couple of years. They were going to bump it up from 7.5 to 12. Done deal. Kind of like again, Trent Williams, Chris McCaffrey, they were kind of grumbling last year. They got those deals done. I thought it was going to be the same kind of thing. At least that was the early word. And now we're hearing maybe he wants more than that. I want 20 a year. That's why this is stuck. Because he's thinking, 20-something a year. And the Niners are like, we just got done doing that. We just got rid of Debo because of that. We're not putting that kind of allocation in the room. And this is the only thing that you can be pissed about, Jauan Jennings. If you were pissed about this, you should have been pissed before the draft, so we could have got something for you. We'd have shipped you out, and we'd have got somebody else. And we would have fortified the position. And again, that's part of playing the leverage game. The agent is going, hang on, now. Right before camp. We know AIYUK's not coming back. Pearsall had hurt himself in OTAs, and he's going, we got these guys. Just wait till after the draft. Because, again, before the draft, because he doesn't necessarily want to get traded, he knows he fits in this system very well. He knows the 49ers value him. They know that they value what he brings to the table and the blocking and the whole thing. He probably wouldn't be as good on another team. So why take that chance? Anyway, I went back to Jennings. I didn't think I would. Tommy, I still watch the Giants because I'm an idiot. I do too, but it's just, again, I was on the flagship of the Giants for, years and years and years. And so we talked about the Giants. It's not good content. At least to me, it's not. It's not good content. They suck. They don't score runs. I know that, you could technically say they're not out of it because nobody in the bottom of that wild card chase is playing very well. And there's a couple of teams that aren't great, and I haven't even checked the score tonight, but they're not entertaining. I'm in the business of entertainment. I'm in the in the business of clicks and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think they're compelling conversations. They're not compelling to talk about. Everyone's just bitching and moaning. And I've lived in cities where bitching and moaning is great. People like bitching and moaning. I found out that the Bay Area, for all these years of doing radio here, it's not really a bitching and moaning kind of town because we just find something else to do. If you're that bad, even if we bought tickets, we just won't come out anymore. We'll just be like, why would I compound the problem? Yeah, I bought Giants tickets. Why would I compound the problem? Now, the ballpark's great and all that kind of stuff. But, the Kuminga stuff's old. He's just sitting there. What's probably going to happen is he's going to sign the 7.9 and be a free agent next year. I mean, they're not going to give him an opportunity, and he knows it. So he's just going to sit back. Probably, if they can't move him, he's hoping to get moved. But if they can't move him, he's going to play for the 7.9, which is far under what he's worth. But then he gets freedom next year as a free agent to choose where he gets to go. That's all. So that's where that situation is. Nothing has changed. Even if somebody tries to bring something up that it has changed, it has not. It has not changed. Raiders start on Thursday in Vegas, and I was down there last year for the practices. In fact, I'll do something in the NFL Blitz about Max Crosby. Look, those are going to be fun practices. But what's going to be scary for the Niners is I'm not shocked. I would not be shocked if Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, I want to do that. Because remember, last year they had so many injuries, they canceled joint practices with the Saints. I don't know if you remember that in Santa Clara. And I'm kind of surprised they're not doing it with the Raiders because I just read you off the list of guys that are hurt and key players that are hurt. And when you have joint practices, they're more physical than your regular practices. Guys are going to go at each other. Guys are going to try to prove things. And you could get other guys hurt. I mean, seriously, if they had another injury at wide receiver, I'm just knock on wood if you're with me. But like Pearsall or something, oh my God. Can you imagine? Like, what? We can't have that. So I wouldn't be surprised if either A, they pulled some guys out, or B, they just said, I don't know, man. Because they can't afford any more injuries. So anyway, that's the 49ers story of things. Let's get a little bit of NFL Blitz going for you because there's a couple of really cool things that I have. In fact, you know what? Did I load this up? Oh, you know what? I didn't. Hang on one second because I've got to load a piece of video up for you that I'm not even sure I sent over to myself. I edited it, but I didn't send it over. I don't believe. So let me see here. It's right here. Because I want to play this for you. Because I'm writing a piece and I need your help on it. Actually, this is the second week in a row that I've needed your help on something. Let's see. Boom. Ignore this piece that's going to pop up forever, forever so briefly. Is that right there? Yeah, that's it. We're going to take that off the screen as fast as possible. There we go. Okay. All right, we'll do that as part of the NFL Blitz. All right, NFL Wire, which we'll take you around the rest of the league, some of the things that are going on, some of the stories that you need to know. Let's widen out the lens a little bit.
It's time for a look at the NFL stories making headlines. It's the NFL Wire on John Lund Unleashed.
All right, let me start with this. This is pretty funny. So this is what I was telling you about when it comes to these practices and how physical they can get. Because Max Crosby goes 100 miles an hour, right? He has always gotten in a fight in joint practices. Don't believe me? Here's Max Crosby.
100% fight rate in joint practices.
Yeah, you do. 100%.
100%. And I'm looking forward to continue that trend. Because
I'm so happy you just said that.
I just know it's going to happen, and I'm not going to try to cause some issues, cause whatever. I just know eventually it's going to happen, and I'm here for it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Joint practices is painful, bro. You need to. It's just a part of the NFL culture. Like, when that week comes, like, the videos start leaking, you start seeing all the shit, just the competition. That's when you know you're getting closer and closer. The preseason's one thing, but, like, we're not really, you know what I mean? I don't really get to play in the preseason. So it's like, those joint practices are game days in camp, and it's lit, and there's a lot of bragging rights. You know what I mean? It's the purest form. You're putting the ball down and fucking getting to work and going to war. Mm-hmm. You start with one-on-ones, and you do inside drill, and then you go to team, and it's just fireworks from start to finish. So I freaking love joint practice. I have 100%
hold on a second.
fight rate and joint practice.
There it goes. 100% fight rate. Okay, a couple of things. I don't know if you've seen, I can't remember which. It wasn't Cribs or something, but they showed his house, and you can see in the background there, he's got Tony Soprano right there, and he's got himself sacking Patrick Mahomes. So that's pretty cool in the background. Got to give him credit. But that's what I mean. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, like, Max Crosby knows he's going to fight, and he's going to play all out. He's going to lay balls out because that's what he does. And he's like, I don't play in the preseason. They kind of protect him from himself. So he knows he's going to play really hard in these one-on-ones, all this kind of stuff. And just what they need would be another injury. So I would watch that video for our Kyle Shanahan, and I'd call Pete Carroll, and I'd go, like, not doing this. Just not doing this. Which, by the way, pretty cool that Pete Carroll in with the Raiders, and that was weird last week seeing him on the other sideline. But like I said, Max Crosby is going to want to rip somebody's head off and then fight. And it's like, no, we can't have any more injuries. And that dude just says he's got 100% joint practice fight rate. So I can't have that. So anyway, there's Max Crosby saying that, he's going to fight, and he's probably going to injure somebody. So there's that. That will start on Thursday. Here's where I need your help. So I told you this. I'm writing a national column for an old friend of mine, Jason Barrett, who has this media company that covers all of radio, TV, sports, media, all that kind of stuff out of New York. And I've been writing a column for him. And this is my third column that I've written for him. Last week, I wrote a piece that's up on the blog at johnlundunleashed.com about ESPN and how it's taken over and these packages and the NFL and how all that's going to work. So that's up there right now. And what I'm writing now is Tom Brady in his second year in the booth and what I think he's going to be and how I think he's going to be better. And, I had Mike Pereira on a couple of weeks ago. Mike was to the right of Brady. Literally, they had him as almost like a babysitter the entire season. And Mike told me some things that Tom did that were pretty funny that I'm incorporating into the story. But my question to you is, does it matter that Brady's doing this? Do you care? Like, okay, he's on the first team. Does that matter to you? Do broadcasters matter to you? Do you think he was terrible last year? Do you think he got better? Like, I'd love your opinion on it because I'm writing a piece basically that, I've gone back and watched some of his games, and he was mechanical and he had too much information. And I thought by the end of the year, he wasn't so bad. And, some of your favorites. And then the other thing is, as I was doing research for this that I uncovered, is there's been 26 quarterbacks who have been an analyst on major networks. All right. 26 of them. And so you can go back to even like Johnny Unitas or Bob Greasy. Now, I don't count Montana because Joe Montana was in the studio at NBC, wasn't very good. But, think about the best ones right now, right? I mean, Collinsworth is up there. He was a receiver. But, through the years, I mean, Phil Simms was a quarterback, right? Troy Aikman, he got his start over in the Europe League, though. Romo is one. Like, a lot of quarterbacks are just by nature because they know the game and they know what's going on and they have to know every position. So anyway, I'd love to get your thoughts on Brady, but this is Brady. He was on with Joel Klatt of Fox on his podcast, and I think they're going to release the video and clips of it. But I just snagged one of them, which is Brady talking about going into his second year of broadcasting and how much more comfortable he's going to feel after putting one under his belt.
And probably a lot like being an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
You think, hey, I'm prepared and I got it and I practice, and then you go in a real game of your rookie year and you're like, oh my God, like that's a lot different. It's a lot faster. Where are my eyes? What am I doing? And then, it gets a little better in week 2 and a little better in week 3. And then sometimes you regress a little bit. And sometimes you do things you really like that impress you. And then sometimes you're like, you forgot completely going into week 9. Like, how did I do that? Or what was I talking about? And then it's just, by the time I got to the Super Bowl, I was way more comfortable, and it was just a really rewarding year. And it wasn't perfect by any means, and I certainly didn't expect it to be perfect, but just excited about now going into year 2 with 1 year under my belt. And again, still having people that are on this journey with me that kind of have brought so much joy to my life, even in my post-career. So it's been really amazing.
All right, so that's what's interesting about him, and where I think he's going to have difficulty. He's got a good personality. He's funny. I don't know if you've seen it. Maybe you still have hate as a Patriot, or they won too much, or anything like that. I'm past all that kind of stuff. Never really hated Brady. Respected him because he was such a good player. I never hated the Patriots, any of that kind of stuff. But where I think you kind of get, programmed as you get older, and it's harder to change your ways. So with Brady, where I think he's going to struggle is, we're all athletes, former coaches, all that kind of stuff, is you've got to be able to criticize your peers, number one, which a lot of times you're going to get grief for that, especially, people have your number, they text you, why you say that about me, dude? It's not personal, it's business. But so that's one of the most difficult things for athletes to do. Number one, and then the second one is completely show your personality. So for you to be great, John Madden didn't care. If you go back to the best analyst of all time, football analyst of all time, John Madden completely opened up who he was. Boom, bam, he's drawing stuff on them. He didn't give a shit. He didn't care. Like, whatever you're going to say about him. And anybody who's really successful in what they do, they don't care, right? They're just going to be them. You may not agree with it, but they can handle the criticism. They're just going to be them. And when you're a commentator like Chris Collinsworth, he just kind of is weird and wacky. And when Gruden got to be really good at it, I thought he just decided who gives a shit. He went from kind of being really tight and didn't really want to say anything negative against anybody. And then all of a sudden he just kind of, hit a point where it was like, I don't care. I'm just going to kind of say what I want. And you kind of get that way in life. But because Brady has been so corporate his whole life, right? TB12, all his different business interests. He and this is again, I don't blame him for this. It's just, he's had to be closed off, and he doesn't really open up, and he doesn't really like around certain friends. Like, you hear people that know Brady, and it's like, look, he's got a good personality. He's really funny, all these kind of things, but he hasn't really shown it. He doesn't publicly show it. Reminds me a little bit of Buster Posey. Like, if you ever knew Buster Posey behind the scenes, Buster's funny, and he can be life of the party guy, but he never wanted to show that to the media because he didn't want us to run into his locker in the clubhouse after every game, and you have to be a comedy guy. But you've seen Buster in commercials and stuff like that. It's pretty funny. That Toyota commercial where he's in the hospital, or like with Bochy doing the fishing thing, boop, boop, beep, boop, turn left, I want tacos. He could do those kind of things. But a lot of these guys are closed off corporate guy. And that's kind of Brady. He's always been his whole life, ever since he became as popular as he became as the Patriots quarterback, of all these different business ventures. And so he didn't really want to show that side to him. He didn't want to completely open up, get on his back like your dog, and just, that's it, man. I got nothing else. And so I don't know if he can just change that, because what you have to be like Tony Romo, and he was at the best, and he doesn't really do this as much, but he just didn't care. I'm going to call out the play. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I don't know if he's overthinking it. I don't know if corporate people told him to quit doing that, or whatever the case may be. He's not as fun. He's not as loose. Troy Aikman, I'm not a huge Troy Aikman guy, but the one thing I'll give him credit for, he doesn't care. He's been away from the game long enough as a player that he'll criticize anybody. He'll rip officials. He'll rip coaches. He'll rip play. Like, he just is at the point where he doesn't care. So I kind of like that, even though he's kind of boring. Like I said, Collinsworth just kind of goes all out. John Madden, when he was his best, just went all out. Like, the best ones they just say whatever. Whatever they want. They give you a true personality. They're like an open book. And I don't know if Brady can do that, because he does have the personality. I just don't know if he can just flip it wide open, hit the gas and say, I don't care, because he's got this persona about him. So he's under control at all times. He's Tom Brady with these high-end brands that he represents. And that's not really like, open it up and say whatever you want guy, which, by the way, personally, he's like that. I mean, if you've seen him in certain things, he cusses like a sailor. He's just, but and then the other side of it is like, he's Raider guy. So he doesn't get to go into the facilities. He doesn't get to talk to the coaches, to the players that week. Now, he's got numbers to people, and he can do those things. And I'm sure, but they don't let him into facilities because he's got a stake into the Raiders. So he's got a more difficult job, in that some of the insights that you get, he doesn't get, And so a lot of the times during that week, you get insights, you get stories, you get, hey, we might do this, we might do that, those kind of things. But nobody's going to say that, because it's like, you're doing our game and we play the Raiders later on down the line. We're not going to give you any kind of insights. We're not going to give you any anecdotes to talk about. We're not going to give any stories about the team. We're not going to give any cute things to fill in or reference. So it just makes his job even that much more difficult. So like I said, maybe you don't care at all, and you're like, I don't care. If I don't like a broadcaster, I'll turn them down. And I tend to, just because this is what I do for a living and have for 30 years, I'm interested in broadcast teams and pregame and halftime shows and all those kind of things. I didn't, at the beginning of the year, he wasn't good. He was tight. He was over-prepared, actually. You want him to just, it's just insights here and there. And then the other thing that is difficult, especially for superstar players at his level, because like I said, for years and years, and it's kind of why they struggle with coaching as well, not everybody sees the game the way they see the game. So what they think is really a simple thing is really a complicated thing. And you've got to take a complicated game and in split seconds, put it through a filter. And there was always an acronym when in radio, I'd had program directors tell me this. If I got overly complicated in explaining something, it was KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And so I'm sure the people at Fox go, keep it simple, stupid. Just make it easy. Like, you can say certain things, but Tom Brady could could go deep into the language you use and type of things, and too deep this, that, and the other. But the best ones simplify things. They make it easy. So they can do it from the novice who's watching the game all the way up to somebody who really knows what's going on out there. And that's the trick of the trade. And it takes a long time. And to defend him to a certain extent, I mean, if you think about it, Tony Romo, before he became a number one guy with Jim Nantz on CBS, he was in the studio for a while. Troy Aikman went over to NFL Europe and was on a 3-man booth, and nobody criticized. Nobody was like, "You're on the number one team." Greg Olson was really good on the number one team, and then he had to come in there, and everyone was like, "He doesn't deserve this job." And then we all looked at Jason Witten and went, "What a joke!" So you can't put anybody on the number one team. So he's under this scrutiny because he's Tom Brady, and under this spotlight because he's Tom Brady, and he's with the number one team. And all these other guys got an opportunity to kind of work their way up outside like a Jason Witten who completely fell on his face. But you don't really start at number one. That's like putting a guy, your first round pick, bad offensive line, bad receivers, bad running back. Sorry, you got to save the franchise. Just takes a minute. And then I know about chemistry, and it takes, even if all that team that they have, and it's a good team, it's a good broadcast team. Burkhardt is good, and Tom Rinaldi is good, and Aaron Andrews is good. That's a good broadcast team. I'm sure they have the top producers, all that kind of stuff. When Mike Pereira was with him, Pereira's been doing it forever. I'm sure he was a great guy to have to his right, like to make him comfortable, all those kind of things. They're going to change that this year. He's going to be more in the studio as Mike, but they wanted him around Tom Brady. So they did all these things. And now it's just like, hey, you got to be great now. We're paying you, what is it, $375 million? Woo. So anyway. So like I said, I'm writing a piece on it. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on him. Do you care? Do you not care? Do you think he's terrible? Do you still resent him? I know a lot of people I still think just want him to fail. So anyway, there's that. I'll read some of those comments in a minute. And then finally, I saw this right before the show, and I don't know how they come to this conclusion. NFL stadiums ranked by fan reviews, Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor out of 5 stars. Now, I don't know if this is accurate or not. People have bitched and moaned about Levi's Stadium, and it's only because they haven't won a Super Bowl, I think. Because at Candlestick Park, it was a dump, but it was our dump, and there had been so many great moments in it that house would become a home, right? What takes a house to a home is all the memories and all the things that happened in it. And at Levi's Stadium, I mean, they ran over the Packers and went to the Super Bowl there, and they've had some big games there. There's no doubt, but it's not Candlestick Park. And people are bitching and moaning who are on the Sun side. They've been doing that forever. But is Levi's Stadium the 29th best stadium in the league? I don't think so. And one of the reasons I know that is, see SoFi right behind it? You may not want to admit it, but SoFi is pretty cool. And so like the Rams and Chargers play in a palace, and that's 30th? I don't buy that. Lambeau, I understand. I've been to games at Lucas Oil. I don't know what that's about. I've been to games at Heinz. I've been to games at Mile High. I've been to games at Jerry World. I've been to games at Lumen. Kansas City, the stadium itself is nothing, but it's so loud. I've not been to Baltimore. I've not been to Atlanta. I've been to tons of games at Ford Field. I used to do pre-half and post. There's no way that's the 10th best stadium. You can't even it's such a scary place to be. You can't even tailgate at Ford Field. I did pre and post game there, and you had to park your car about a mile away, and it's blizzardy. And the homeless people were so aggressive that it was like a strip joint. I had to carry ones with me. And then I would jog to the stadium because they would come out from nowhere, and I'd just hand them a one and keep running. So no, that's not 10. Superdome is a dump, but I'll tell you this, it's from New Orleans as far as Super Bowls, it's great. Carolina, Jacksonville's a dump, been there. Been to Minnesota, just okay. Not been to the Bills, been to the Texans, been to Arizona. That's a dump. That should be probably close to last. Philly, I guess they're saying that because of the fans. I've been to Gillette. That's nothing to write home about. Been to Tampa, not great. I've not been to Tennessee. Been to Soldier Field. That's cool. I'm a little surprised at that. I would think that it's not that the stadium's bad with the Raiders. If you haven't been there, it's nowhere near Oakland. I mean, it's nowhere near. In Pine Sand, it's awesome. It is. The stadium itself is really cool. But the atmosphere is all the other team. The Raiders have never won there at any level. And it's everybody else. Like, let's use Philly as an example. Philly fans going there, flying in from Philly, making Vegas a weekend, and it's always the other team. So they have no atmosphere whatsoever at that stadium. Been in New York. It's okay. Cincy never been there. Miami was there for the Super Bowl for the Niners. That's a nice stadium. But it is in the middle of nowhere. But, I mean, I don't know why it would be rated so poorly. So, like I said, I don't know that there's any rhyme or reason to these rankings. But I do know that having talked about Levi's Stadium about 5,000 times. That people are pissed because of the sun side. But to me, it's more that they just haven't won enough. They haven't won big games there, right? They haven't, there hasn't been the moment. Like, yeah, Raheem Mostert against Green Bay. Yeah, awesome. Coming back against Detroit. Awesome. Like, there's been some, but they didn't end up in Super Bowls. Dwight Clark makes the catch at Candlestick. They win the Super Bowl. So that hasn't happened at Levi's Stadium. I went to the first game ever. I've been covering games in Levi's Stadium since it opened in 2014. I think it's a good stadium, but it's not loud. It's not overly loud. There is the sun side, blah, 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 but they just haven't won. If they had won more, I think that would be it. So, and like I said, these ones at the top, Indy, Pittsburgh, Mile High, Jerry World's nice. You gotta be honest. But like these Indy, Pittsburgh, and Denver, they're nothing special. And yeah, they're in the top. So I don't know. Maybe their fans just won't say anything bad about their stadium. But anyway, I know about Levi's. I know why people hate it. And I think it's more that they just haven't won anything there than anything else. I will say that Sunside is brutal. I had a friend of mine, because I was on the radio and I was like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. What's a big deal? Because the press box is on the other side, so it's not on the sun side. And a friend of mine had bought tickets to a game, and I did the pregame, I did halftime, and then I didn't do the postgame that day, and I went over and hung out with my friend. And there was no one sitting in those, if you haven't been over there, it's in this suite, and there was no one sitting in these nice leather chairs, but they were against the sun. And I was like, what's going on with everybody? They're all on the other side, and it's further away from the field. And they're like, try to sit in those. So for the first time ever, this is like 3 years ago, I sit in one of those. I swear I lasted 30 seconds. Like it's hotter than the surface of the sun in those chairs when the sun is beating down on them. So because a lot of times I was like, that's no big deal. Everybody's crying too much, whatever. And I did. I sat in one of those seats for 30 seconds. The sun beat the hell out of me. And I like warm weather. Because I remember the first time it was a preseason game between the Broncos and the Niners. And I remember walking, and all these people were used to Candlestick and the mild conditions, and it was hot. It was a preseason game against Denver. A friend of mine who's in the computer chip business, who makes boatloads, was like, yeah, come see my suite. And he had all this great food and wine, and it wasn't on the sun side. And the leather chairs, and we're sitting out there, and I go, this is the greatest stadium ever. And then I'd come in on Monday to do the show, and people are like, the sun side. It was like 90-something degrees, and people were used to Candlestick, and they were pissed off. And it's just never, and getting in and out of there, I got to be honest, getting in and out of there, not great. But I would do, pregame, I would get there at like 8 a.m. for a 1 o'clock kickoff. And then postgame, if the game ended at 5, we were doing postgame till, 7:30 or 8. So I never had a problem getting in or out, because I was there either so far ahead and or so far after that was never an issue. But obviously we had a studio. I don't know if you knew or ever watched this in there, but we had KMBR as a studio there. And, you could see the trains and the traffic. And so, I know, but it was like, man, yeah, Candlestick was more fun. There's no doubt. Candlestick was, like I said, at the end, it was a dump, but it was our dump, and it was fun. And they won, and it was loud. And Levi's just doesn't have that yet. They haven't won enough. Let's see. Hi, 420. Yeah, I guess it's a fake black hole, but the one side is a nightclub, basically. And like I said, when the first game I ever went to there, I'm standing there, and these limos are just pulling up, totally like the polar opposite of Oakland. And all these limos are pulling up, and it's all these women basically that you would see in Vegas with big old boots and all this kind of stuff. And like 3, 4, 5 of them would come out of the limo, and then some old rich guy would come out, and then you'd see them later, and they were in that one side of the end zone where it's a nightclub. And they're the Vegas Raiders in every sense of the word. There is no blue collar about the Raiders anymore. And they don't have any fans because they haven't won. I have friends that live there and work in Vegas in sports, and they're like, they haven't like the Knights are more about Vegas than the Raiders are. So I don't know how the A's are going to be. A lot of people don't want them there. But as far as the Raiders go, they haven't won. And so what it's become, like if you went to the Niners-Raiders game, they played them a few times in the preseason, but they had the one during the regular season, that crazy shootout. Stidham was quarterbacking for the Raiders. And actually, George and I were at that game. And It was 85% Niner fans. Like, have you ever been to a game in LA at SoFi? It was 50% more than that. It was all Niner fans. It was ridiculous. I mean, every touchdown, a score by the Niners, any Niners good play, the place erupted. There's no Raider fans there. I feel bad for them. Let's see what else. Did I do strip club voice? I didn't even know that I did that. I might have. Come on main stage, get those dollars out of your pockets, guys. I didn't know I was even doing that. Who knows? Anything else? Questions, comments? I do have one sweet, clean, family-friendly Caboose pistol before we get out of here today. Hey, what's going on, Tony? It's good to see you, man. I think Levi Stadium would have been better with a dome. It was built too close to the airport. If they had it to do over again, what they could have done is what they did in Miami, which it's an open-air stadium, which I like much better. But they could have done it so that the sun wasn't such a factor, and they could have added these kind of, I don't know what you'd even call them, wings or whatever you'd call them, like they've done in Miami. And so they could have done something like that. And there was talk right at the beginning of it that maybe they do something like that, but it was in the billions to do. And Jed's like, yeah, I'm good. So, but yeah, I do know, because I have a lot of friends that have season tickets there, and they weren't told about the sun, and now they've tried to get onto the shade side. And it's like, best of luck with that. So it's tough. Yeah, that was funny. I was at that game. Well, I covered that game, but yeah, they were all sorts of. But that's Detroit, man. I feel bad for them too, because I mean, like I said, I worked there. I went through an 0-16 season there, and it's just, those people, man, they've gone through a lot. Their team just sucks so bad, so bad. We got a couple more supers. Thank you very much. Ew, it's our good friend Fuji. Will there be a bottom of the pint? I couldn't make it on Friday, but I will make it this Friday. Was the homeless issue? Yes. It was terrible, which I don't understand in a city like Detroit, because it's so damn cold. I don't know how they stayed alive, literally. Like I said, as the season went on, and like I said, I was the pre-half and post-game show host for the Detroit Lions Radio Network. So same kind of a thing. For a 1 o'clock game, I'd have to be there at like 8. So I'd park my car, which, you know, Levi's, like, you have a great parking spot. You walk right in. At Ford Field, they gave you it was like a mile away. I'm not kidding you. So it's a blizzard, and I'm jogging, and homeless people would come out from like their encampment. Like they had a tent and would be like underneath like a bridge or something. And you'd be jogging, and all of a sudden, like, you couldn't avoid them. There'd be like 3 of them, and you're like, here's a buck for everybody. And then I'd start jogging again. Here's a buck. Like, it was like trolls would come out. And it was like, thou shalt not pass. And I was like, okay. And so I learned after a couple of times of that, it was like, I got to have money with me. I got to have money with me at all times. Because if I don't, then I'm not going to be able to get to the game. That's going to be a problem, because that's how I make my living. Yeah, it wasn't great, man. Let's see. Okay. Keep us up to date. Keep us up to date on that. Yes, I did. I worked in Pittsburgh. I was the program director and talk show host at what was ESPN 1250 in Pittsburgh. And it was owned by ESPN. That is no longer a station there. They have KDKA, which is an FM sports station on 93.7 there. But before that, I was at ESPN 1250, and I actually ran that station. And that's where my son was born, actually. And then we left like 6 months later to Detroit. I had already taken the job in Detroit, but I needed the insurance. Sure, they were very happy with me. Like literally a month after my son was born, I was like, we're out of here. They're like, oh, thanks. Rally chug. Everybody chug. I do not have any. I know, because I'm still in my encampment here that looks like an insane asylum. I don't have anything up there. I did have whiskey and stuff in the room, but I don't anymore. I apologize for that. All right, let me hit you with a sweet, clean, family-friendly Caboose pistol. I know I have the music here somewhere. There it is.
John Lund Unleashed presents the Caboose pistol.
Wedged in the crack of her buttocks.
Somehow, someway, Lundo thinks this is the best way to leave a final impression on you for the day.
The old Caboose pistol, everybody has one.
Did you say Caboose?
I know some women who could hide a machine gun in there.
Yeah.
Leave me out of this, you weirdo. Here's John.
I will spare you. There are still dildos being thrown on the court at WNBA games, but we've covered that so many times that it is not Caboose worthy. If anything changes or they're different colored, I may change my stance on that. But here's this. NASA interns stole, get this, $21 million. Not 2.1, $21 million of lunar to use during sex to have sex on the moon. So you're saying to yourself, we need more information on that. I'm glad you asked, because I've got it for you right here. If I could share my screen with you. Let's cut that down. NASA intern stole $21 million in moon rocks to impress his girlfriend inside the 2002 heist. So this just came out, I swear. Thad Roberts can say that he's done something no one else has done for his love. Roberts and two accomplices stole $21 million in moon rocks from NASA, resulting in an 8-year jail sentence. Excuse? Love. Roberts' crime is explored in the 2011 book Sex on the Moon. It's been the subject of much discussion. It started in 2002 when Roberts was an intern and had the idea to steal the moon as a romantic gesture to his girlfriend of 3 weeks. Slow down, partner. He was joined by 2 other NASA interns, his then girlfriend, Tiffany Fowler, and Shay Sauer. I was in love with Tiffany. In my mind, I was thinking, baby, I'll give you the moon. It would be a romantic way to start a relationship. While he and his accomplices were ultimately captured and sentenced to spend time in a prison. In different interviews, Roberts argued that he didn't see the gesture as theft. Quote, I did it because I wanted to be loved. I wanted someone to know that I literally cared about them that much and have the symbol there to remind them of it. $21 million. And again, I've done dumb things. Millions of dumb things. I've probably told you about 90% of them either on the radio or on this show. But wouldn't you be smart enough, even at that age, to know that you probably can't steal moon rocks from NASA and that those things are probably pretty valuable? That when they landed on the moon, they took those moon rocks from the moon and probably don't want you to steal them, and he actually stole them. The gesture is nice, but it doesn't matter. Like, just because it's a nice gesture. Like, I was stealing the money so I could buy my, it's $21 million. Anyway, 8 years. I would have thought it'd be that much, though. 8 years, overcrowding prisons, 8 years. But anyway, there you go. And that story's just coming out now. That just came out. Like, I don't know why. It was 2002. I'd like to read the book on it now. NASA intern stole $21 million of lunar, so moon rocks, to use during sex to have sex on the moon. And the other part of it is, it's 3 weeks, Junior. Slow down. Like, you don't even know if you like this girl that much, And I don't mean it like it's not a knock on her. It's just, when you're in a relationship, 3 weeks, I've decided I'm going to steal her the moon. Dude, it's 3 weeks. Like, if you're getting married or something or, whatever. But plus, that's a lot of pressure. Like, we're going to have sex on the moon. Like, I hadn't had sex there yet, I don't think. Anyway, there you go. 8 years of your life because you stole the moon. Good story. Maybe he's making money off the book. Anyway. Oh, what's going on? Did they not get any runs? See, I told you. That's why I don't talk about them. Anything else? Bases loaded twice, 0 runs. Thank you for keeping me up to date. Hi, Fozzie. Yeah, I'd like to. Anything else that we need to talk about? I'll go look at the Giants, but not for very long. You've already told me. Twice, bases loaded. No runs. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Anything else? Let's see. I think that will do it for today. All right. Since I am feeling better, obviously, we will keep things going the rest of the week. Lots of stuff still that I held back because they're going to be traveling tomorrow. And then Thursday, we'll give you all the report from Raiders land in Las Vegas. We'll get someone from Vegas. I'm working on a couple of people that I can't unveil yet. We'll get somebody from Vegas to give us a little insight into that camp and how things were looking, and we'll do that on Thursday for you. We'll be back tomorrow as well. Remember, questions, comments, thoughts, put them right underneath the show right here, or you can also hit me up on X at John Lund Radio. That's a good place to go. Obviously, I am on at John Lund Radio on Instagram as well. Maybe you watch the Bay Area Sports Collective, LinkedIn, Facebook, any of those places. But please make sure that you come over to John Lund Unleashed. Please give us a follow, subscribe, hit that like button before you get out of here. please, 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 because that'll help the algorithm. And the last thing to do is get those alerts on, because we send stuff out through the day, and then we do Niners Talk at night at 7 o'clock each night Pacific. So make sure that you have your alerts on for that as well. That'll do it for a Tuesday edition of the show. We'll be back tomorrow unless breaking news happens, and then we could be back during the day as well. Everybody else have a great Tuesday night.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!